Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday to you. I do hope you're having a wonderful day. So far, I know the weekends are just simply not long enough. However, we always look forward to Monday because then we get to share cool information with you. So thank you for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I am Kathy Holmes, delighted to be your hostess today. And in the Zoom booth with me, I have Barbara Dobbin. She is with Barbara Ann Photography, and she's fabulous.
Hi,
Welcome to
Kathy.
the show, Barbara. How are you, love?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on again. I
I love having
love it.
you on the program, and it's been about a year since we last connected.
Yes.
But I think for our audience, some of our audience members may not know who you are. And so let's give them a little indication of who you are, what you do, and we will talk about all of it.
Well, Barbara Ann Photography is a portrait studio here in Nanaimo, although I rent an actual space in Lanceville for the actual studio. It's got big ceilings. I can use whatever lighting I want. And I specialize in portraits. I photograph all genders, but most of my training is in specializing in women's bodies and women's self-esteem and helping women find the beauty in themselves.
Well, that's a very simple way to do it, but what you do is not simple at all from our perspective. I have been, had the good fortune of being photographed by you twice. Both times the experience was unbelievable. It was fun, it was active, it was joyful. So what has inspired you to do this work? Why did you become a photographer? And let's sort of start from the beginning and work our way through it.
Well, I've always had a passion for photography, going right back to being a teenager, which is often the case with photographers. Because, oh, when I got my first camera, but sometimes it takes you a long time to come back to actually living your passion.
That's
And for me, that's the way that things happened. I followed a corporate path for many years, always in fields that helped people in some way or another. And as many of us going through COVID, decided that we needed to be a little truer to ourselves and our values and our principles. And life is short. Some of us lost people in that period of time. You just never know how much time you have. And it was time to make that jump to follow my heart's passion, which is always about making somebody feel better and about themselves than they did before they came into my presence. And I do that through my camera and through creating portraits of women that they see themselves in. And it isn't oh, you have to look like a movie star. People come in and say they're not photogenic, and that really isn't. Yeah, there's like 1% of the population that may be perfectly asymmetrical on both sides of their faces. But that's not what makes a beautiful portrait. And
no, not at all.
it's capturing the essence of the person in front of me. So I made that jump 4 years ago to pursue this full time, and I wouldn't change a thing. I love the women who come to my studio. I have men as well, and I have all the genders actually. I've had multiple types of genders in my studio, and creating a safe space for somebody to be able to open up their vulnerability and just not be a mom, not be a business owner, not be all those different hats that they wear, and just be true to who they are as a person. It's incredibly rewarding, and I make many women cry. It's my greatest honor when somebody comes in and I hear them go silent, and then I look over and it's like, and they're dabbing tears off their face because they've never seen themselves in the way that they are now seeing themselves, which is how the rest of us see them. And they're like, it changes how they feel about themselves forever. It's really incredible.
That's a very huge point. I think that we have, as individuals, as women and men, we have a perception of what we think we look like. We dress a certain way to create a certain image of what we feel is our authentic selves.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we have to wear a uniform or we have to wear some other kind of, for lack of better words, mask that isn't necessarily our authentic self. But, finding that beauty, finding who you are in the essence of a photo is really magical. It's really,
Yeah.
really magical. Did you have a photo that was taken of you that inspired you to go down that particular path and not
Um,
take a picture? Or like what happened for you that made you decide that that photography, yes, that would be photography, but to find the essence in people?
I think it's it's just something I've always done. And when I look back over my career, managing other people, finding people's the best parts of who they are has always been something I've been really good at. I
Yeah.
see people's faults as well, but I see them as like a minor. It's something they can work on, but they're really good at this. This is who they are. They shine there, and building them up has just always been what I've taken into everything I've ever done. And as my photography evolved, I discovered that that's what I brought. That's where my special talent lies with photography. I'm not a technical photographer. I know all my bits and pieces, but as we're moving through things, I'm constantly adjusting the lighting up, down, around, depending on the person in front of me and where like I let them lead. Like the more creative they are, the more they put themselves into their experience, the more creative my lighting becomes for them. And some people aren't, they're just quiet, they want to be seen quietly, and I'm able to bring in that experience for them as well. Just discovered it's who I am. It's
It's
a lifelong
nature
journey.
of what takes you down that road. I got to tell you, it's magical, right? As I said, had the great privilege of being photographed by you a couple times now. In both sessions, I felt absolutely gorgeous and completely, you have such a way of paying attention to the little things that make all of the experience so enjoyable for the participants. So, and you've had a bit of experience doing it now. The last 4 years, you've gotten yourself tied into a few different things. One of them is coming up on February 5th, which is the Women of Influence Awards. Let's talk a little bit about that and how you got involved with the team over there.
Well, I started last year, so I photographed 89 nominees last year, which was just one of the most, I think, life transforming experiences I've had in terms of my photography passion, because I discovered a world of women who just all give back. And it was shocking to me when you hear about people who have bad experiences working with women, that they can be catty or all these things. And I've never really had that experience. But working with these 89 women that I photographed, it was like everybody was grateful. Everybody was just really, truly humble. And it, it transformed how I see our community here in Nanaimo, because there's so many people doing amazing things. So, Women of Influence, the awards gala, I met Blaze and she'd invited me to photograph the event. And I was like, I photographing the event isn't my passion. So I want to photograph all the women. And at this point, we didn't know how many there was going to be. And then
Yeah,
coming into
brand new.
this year,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
knew this we knew this year would be bigger, but we didn't know what that would look like. And I'm like, nope, I still want to make it happen. I still want to photograph every single woman. I think that these women, every single one deserves to have a portrait of herself where she sees what everybody else sees, which is this incredible person who is just beautiful every day. And so that's why I do an as I am portrait session for this particular segment specifically, because it's not changing how they look. It's not transforming them. I do those as well. Like people want to do glamour and boudoir, and I have angel wings and all that kind of stuff. But the as I am is really about who are you right now at this moment in your life? And can I create a portrait of you where you see that beauty in yourself? And when everybody comes in and they go, oh, I'm not photogenic and I hate being in front of the camera, it's so stressful. Then they leave going, wow, that was so much better than I thought it was going to be. And I love that photo. Or they get down to the last five and they're trying to pick and they're like, this is so hard.
It is.
Wow, to have a woman say, this
Yeah,
is so hard. I
yeah.
can't pick between all these photos that I love of myself. And to hear that, oh, like that's Women of Influence, they deserve to feel worthy of being up on the stage and being recognized. And I think these photos help them kind of accept that as well.
Well, and I also think that women are not always really good at being their own cheerleader. They're really good at cheering on other people, but they're not necessarily cheering themselves on. And so you provide a forum for them to actually be their authentic self. When I was with you the other day, it was, I don't think you didn't have the camera up to your eye where you were peeking. It's like you had it on your shoulder and you had it on, on the other side of you. And so you're engaging in a conversation and then things are snapping without you even knowing what's going on. So your participant I felt very, very connected to you as the photographer, as a person, as a woman yourself, I mean, we laugh the whole doggone time.
I know.
And
And
I mean, yeah, I've been photographed by a lot of people in my life, and I have rarely had that kind of an experience where, somebody is able to take a photo that I would never think of myself doing, right? I mean,
yes,
the shot you took of me, I'm in full hardcore laughter, really embracing the laughter. And so my whole face is just like all jaws. There's a lot of teeth in that photo, and I love it because it's how I want my grandchildren to see me. I want my grandchildren to say, "Oh, that was my grandma." When I move on in life, and heaven forbid that's not going to be a long, I mean, that'll be years from now.
yes,
But I want my grandkids to look at that and say, "Oh, I remember when grandma was like that," right? That's who
yes.
she is this smiling, laughing person. So how do you find that technique? Like, did you happen upon it, or like did you go through formal training to sort of like what made you be able to do things? Or it was just this natural talent.
It's always an evolution, right? So,
Sure.
last year, because I took on this photographing 89 women that I didn't know, and I had to figure out how to break through to get them comfortable and to build a rapport with somebody very quickly. I took all the training things I'd had, but then I had to speed them up a bit and break into it
Modify.
quicker. And I can't even tell you how I did it or what I did. I mean, I know the things I did. Like I had people moving and laughing but there wasn't a formula for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, and as I came into this year, I just found, well, this year was a little different because I did find that the women coming in to be photographed had checked out last year's event. So they kind of had a better idea that, oh, this isn't a headshot. This isn't
Mhm. Yeah.
a specific, I get to be who I am. So more people have come in prepared to just be themselves and embrace the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just try to have fun, right? I ask people about who they are. I'm curious, like, are you a grandmother? Do you have kids yet? Is this your first baby that you're just coming off of maternity leave with? What are like, what do you find? And I ask a lot of people now, what was your highlight of 2024? What are you hoping to find in 2025? And it's different for everybody. And just it's where some of the conversations go just lights me up. It's hilarious. We do laugh. I've had a couple of people like break down laughing. And my secret too is if I get you laughing, I'm snapping as many shots as I can during that. And I show everybody every single shot I've taken during their session. I don't cull it out. So I call it the good, the bad, and the funny. And the more funny I can get, the more fun we have when we're looking at them after. Because sometimes that funny one is the one that somebody identifies with. I have somebody who's sitting on the floor just like you, but they're thrown back laughing. Their eyes are closed. And it's just when they're picking their photos, I ask them, which photo makes you feel the most joy when you look at it? And she's
Yeah.
like, that one. I'm like, then that's the one you should choose.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because I mean, I have to say, it's you kind of want to lean in on the other person's perspective when really it's your inner voice that knows which is the closest to who you truly are in those
yeah.
photos, I think. I really do.
Well, and I think I also, because I set the guidelines starting last year and this year, everyone gets photographed in the same set, the same background, the same flooring. I use the same two lights. I can adjust the lighting depending on what I want, but it's still the same formula around them. So I can't focus on, well, what am I going to do here to make this all look good? It's like 136 women this year. And how do I make
Wow.
each woman shine in her own rights?
Yeah.
And that can't be, you can't manipulate that. It
No.
has to be the woman in front of you. And what does she bring? And when I look at this body of work, and I've actually when I finished on Friday, I finished the exact same amount at 87 that I had photographed prior to last year's event. I photographed last year two extra people after the event because they'd been out of town. But now I've got 40 more people in the next 2 weeks
Exactly.
photographed. And I
Wow.
look back and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Like,
Well, it is incredible because you don't really, I don't know of any photographer that has that many different people in such a short period of time.
yeah.
Right? I mean, that 136 women is a lot of women. That's a
It's a
lot of
bit, it's
estrogen. That's a lot of feeling that's going on. Yeah. Do you find that you are in doing with as each person grows, are you because you're seeing such a volume of people all at once, are you noticing some similarities in women when they're in front of the camera? Is there something that it looks like every single woman does as soon as they get there? Is there a freezing? Is there a no, nothing like that?
No, nothing like that at all. Every single person that comes in is different.
Totally different.
Um,
Yeah.
and and depending on how my day is running, sometimes I have time to sit down with somebody before we even start. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't. It's like, come in front of the camera. Okay, let's get going.
Well,
So
I have to say our last session was very different than the previous one. This one was quick. We were in, we were out, we were done, and I was in love with what you did. It was very difficult to make those choices, I cannot deny. And so for our listeners that, may never have heard of you before, oh my God, it is quite the experience. You absolutely have to work with Barbara for even just a little while. Now, I know that you do this in the community for the Win Awards, but you're doing other things within the community as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to give back. I am part of the executive for the Nanaimo Women's Business Network as well. So I'm vice president. And we just resurrected that organization
I was gonna
last
say, I
year,
thought it was
beginning of the year.
done. I thought they'd closed it, a while
It,
ago.
it
Yeah.
was on track, but there was a couple of women came together and they were like, we want this and started. And now we have a board of 7 fully invested people. It's
Wow.
absolutely one of the greatest joys of last year as well, was helping build this and have these monthly meetings and watch the number of women grow. We had 65 members by the end of December, and then we had an average of 67 people, members and guests, coming out to our events. And just listening to the hum and the positivity and the inclusivity and the joy of each event has been really, really
We
incredibly
need that.
rewarding.
We need that in community. Really, really, we do. There's been a lot of stuff that people are experiencing. Everything from obviously COVID is done and dusted now, although lots of people are still acquiring it. But between, all of the shutdowns, all the closures, businesses changing, businesses reopening, different things,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of transition. What do you say to women who are in transition?
You got to take it one day at a time, but also reach out to other people in your industry if you can. Not necessarily in person, not doesn't have to be in the community.
Mhm.
I've got a group of photography or photographers across Western Canada that we meet online every Monday, and we talk about our businesses, we talk about our challenges, and we open up our vulnerability to move our businesses forward.
Yeah.
We find the same thing with the Nanaimo Women's Business Network. Like, you get to meet people that can be your mentors. There's people in all stages of their business. I've actually just doing a WeBC and Nanaimo Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce peer mentoring program right now as well. So there's 8 of us from all different businesses now coming together and meeting every week to work on the challenges of our business and support each other and grow. Finding,
Networking is the way to go, and being
yes,
able to sit with someone to get, to just run ideas past has been, it's the key for any kind of success, I think, anywhere. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great women out there. Let them support you.
There are a lot. And like you, I haven't really had the experience in Nanaimo. I know it's true that there's obviously people out there that don't get on or make that life difficult or, are very housewives of Beverly Hills and all the garbage that goes with that. But the reality is that most women, especially women in business, we're trying to lift each other up, not bring each other down. How do you find that women have been able to cope with the new just the nuances of having a business, sometimes in many cases for the very first time.
It's different depending on where they've come from in their background.
Yeah.
So there are women who jump into a business because they love what they're doing, but they have no business experience. And then they're having to backpedal and figure out all the things that they didn't know, which is different than somebody who's like, oh, I want to do this. And then they start building slowly before they leave a career doing something else. Um, Running your own business can, if you're not really dialed into your business and your pricing, a lot of women have money blocks and they don't charge what they're worth. They charge what they think other people, what they need to charge in order to compete with other people, but it's not enough to pay their mortgage. It's not enough to, so yeah, it can be a challenge, but getting the business experience from other women. Again, you don't have to go to school and do your business degree. I've got a degree in business management. I've managed and owned other businesses. So when I came into my photography business, I had a good solid understanding of what does it take to run a business and where do I want to be if I want this to be a paycheck that I could actually pay my bills with versus,
We
other
often
people.
undersell ourselves when it comes to women
Yeah.
we're known actually for wanting to be helpers, wanting to be support mechanisms for other people, wanting to, help lift somebody else up, but they often will do it at their own cost.
Yes.
Yeah, it can be a real challenge. So the Women Business Network that you belong to, about how many women belong to that? And can you tell us a little bit more about that for those that might be interested in joining?
Yeah. So at the end, by the end of December, we were at 65
Yeah.
members.
Yeah.
And there's a website, so nanaimowbn.com has all of our information. And it also has where you can purchase tickets to our events that are coming up and check us out and see whether it is a group of women you want to be a part of. Or, yeah, it's
There's
amazing.
different speakers that come on each time you meet once a month.
Every month is different. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing a marketing lab for January. We've got Peggy and Alexa are putting together this incredible marketing lab to help us steer ourselves into 2025 and help make it one of our best business years ever. We've had Sandra Odgers has come in and spoken about women and their finances and making that, a way to move yourself forward by opening your doors and looking at them and saying, hey, I have to look after my finances no matter where I am in my position in a family. Things change, and if you're not
Thank you.
looking after it, if
Yeah.
your head is in the sand, then you can find yourself in a difficult position. So we've had, yeah, so we invite speakers from the community to come in where what they're going to share is going to benefit everybody that comes in. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure that that website is part of the undercurrents of the work that we do, and we'll add that to it. So, Barbara, you've been working mostly with wind in just in the last little while, but generally speaking, what kind of other projects do you do that are like? Do you do large scale projects, or tell us a little bit more about some of the different things that you do within your business?
So I still work mostly one-on-one. I do a few offices, things like that, but like over half of my business is actually personal branding for women. I've actually had a number of clients that are or have been or are planning on being in the speaking circuit. So they want to grow their personal presence out in the world, and having images that reflect who they are is really important to them. I do boudoir, and I do that for all genders. So male, female, but non-binary. I do couples, whichever sexuality each couple falls under doesn't matter to me. And it's just my philosophy on boudoir is it isn't about being sexy. It's about being sensual, and it's about finding that sensuality in yourself. So some of my boudoir sessions are fully clothed. Like you don't have to bare your entire body in order to have a sensual photo. But I also do full fine art nudes as well. So it's really about what do my clients want, need, desire, and creating a safe space so that they can bring out the parts of themselves that they want to see and celebrate.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
and I do families as well. And I've been doing some seniors. So, grade 12 students, not the typical grad photos, but personal photos where they come into the studio and they get to be themselves in a way that they aren't. And it surprises their parents every time they look at their photos and they going, I didn't think that they would be as interested in being in front of the camera. And now you've captured who they actually are right now. And it's just, they're those students then take an image of themselves that they've been able to see manifested. And when they walk into their next stage of their life, they're more confident,
I
which
agree.
is just absolutely amazing for 17 and 18, both boys and girls.
Yeah.
So
I think there's something to be said for that, especially because we grow up so fast. And I think that there's something quite wonderful about having that authenticity of the young or the youthfulness that our young ones have. I mean, I look back on some of my son's pictures that are, the school photos or whatever. It's like, okay, that's a pose. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
And I think it's to have a professional, do that work. It's very different than having them pose in front of mom and dad's camera. It's a whole different thought.
There's a difference between what did you look like and who were you?
And who were you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's what I try to bring out is who are you versus what do you look like?
Yes, 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 yes. Very important. Um, when we talk about having photos for business, you know, do you think everybody should have a headshot? Like, what do you think about that idea? Because I know that we've become such a visual world and we're such a TikTok world and such a, Facebook world. How important is it and why do we put any emphasis or no emphasis on it?
Well, there's two things to consider. The first is, are you the face of your brand? Are you working, like, are you a mortgage broker working to attract clients to you to work with you? Or are you working in a business where you're just a number, it doesn't matter. I think even that category should have some professional images because you don't know where you're going in the future. So
Absolutely.
and we are, what people see is what attracts them. I had somebody come to me a couple of years ago and he was on the spectrum and he wanted to apply for new jobs, but he found that all of his images made him look a little unapproachable. And that's not who he is, but because he's on the spectrum, how he presented in photos just wasn't the same as who he was just every day. So
Yeah.
we created new portraits of him that I was able to work with his personality again, get him laughing and having fun and capture those in between moments. So he still uses some of those photos. Like he's approachable. It's not just a sitting there, what does he look like? It's I'm easygoing. Like I am just gonna, I'm fun to work with. Let's do business together. And that's what your portraits are gonna tell your ideal client. And so when I talk to people, color theory becomes a big part of that business portrait. If you are a counselor or a therapist and your whole mode of operandus with people is going to be calm and relaxing, then don't bring in your big bright reds and purples. Like you need to match your client and the tone of what they're looking for. So, but if you're energetic and you're happy and you're excited, then introduce that color because color will tell people that you are energetic. And so your portrait is really important because what people see and what they experience from you when they actually meet you has to match. If they're looking and going, oh, this person looks like my kind of jam, they're relaxed, it's all beachy, and then they meet you and you're like, yes, I'm energized. And it's like a jarring effect. So, and if your portraits are 20 years ago, they come in and they're going, oh, I thought you had short gray hair and here you have long dark hair. Like, who are you? So,
And there's as much as we can say that we don't age, we do.
yes, yeah,
We do, right? And
yes.
it's important to recognize that that fresh look is very important. I am curious about that because I do know that, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit older, but, in the 80s when we were dressing for business, right, back in the day, there was a color me beautiful kind of concept that went on. Everybody had color me beautiful, where they were draped in all these different colors. Some of them worked for people, some of them didn't, pastels versus brights and all of that. So I'm
Yes.
assuming that that also plays a huge role in photography, just color overall. Do you prefer inside or outside for color?
Well, I photograph almost everybody inside. So,
Yeah,
so when it comes to color, it's
it's on the
again about
clothing as opposed to the external side of
yes.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I do offer my clients access to stylists who can go into their closet and help them really dig deep into what should they be wearing and what should they not be wearing in terms
Talk
of
about that a little bit. I
color.
wonder, I think stylists are really important and undersung. So let's talk a little bit more about that, if you don't mind. What
Yeah.
what does a stylist do when you bring a stylist on board in your work?
So they would go into the client's home to their closet go
Yeah.
through what they actually have existing and then offer suggestions and adaptations to what they have. And sometimes it's, well, have you ever worn these things together? Well, and what if you just wore it like this? And just little tiny changes to maybe update something that may actually be kind of dating them a little bit as well. So, and as we change seasons, so not me, my hair, my face glows white all year round, but I have people like my daughter who she's like almost white during the winter and then she's like deep tan during the summer because it's just the way
Wow.
her pigment works. So what she's wearing different seasons actually changes as well. So yeah, as a
Well,
stylist is
you wouldn't think of that, but it's very, very true.
yeah,
It's very true. Yeah.
yes, a
Yeah.
stylist is going to be able to help. Sometimes it's none of this stuff works for you, so let's go to a couple of different stores and find a couple of key pieces to actually help you feel good about yourself, because sometimes when people start to wear like all black, loose, baggy clothing because they're trying to hide themselves. Whereas what all they need is actually clothing that fits and looks good on them. And then they don't have to hide. It's just finding that. And a stylist is going to help somebody do that.
So do we have a number of stylists that you work with in Nanaimo, or there's just a couple, or
There's a couple, but I'm not going to name them here because they do more private stuff. They're
just
not, yeah.
understood?
So
That's good to know. It's important to know that is available. And what
yeah.
about makeup?
Yep, I work with a number of makeup artists here in town, and those names I will share because they're advertising their work out there. So, but we do a lot of what I call natural enhanced. So, especially with personal branding and headshots, we don't want you to look like somebody that you're not. We don't want eyebrows up to here and or eyelashes up to here. If you're doing boudoir, then yes, my makeup artist can also do all that
That
really deep
enhancement, but
glamour.
it doesn't mean that it's necessarily who you are, and
Yes,
that's a
and it's
fantasy. Yeah.
exactly. Well, it's nice to look in the mirror, see yourself, but just know that everything's just your skin's just been evened out. Your eyes are a little bit just a little bit more enhanced. So when the flash comes, it actually everything shows up the way you want it to show up, but it still looks like you. I've been working with Amanda Gangosa here in town for a number of years,
Sorry,
and
Amanda
Gangosa.
Gangosa.
Yes, and she's actually she will be at the Fire and Ice Mixer for the Women of Influence nominees on Monday night because she's also donating some of her time to help everybody look and feel good.
How
and
wonderful.
uh, and then there's a few others. Sherry Taylor, I also work with, and Ashley Beggs down in Duncan. And there's a few people that have come through my studio a little bit more part time on the side when the main people I work with aren't available because they're highly sought after and they know their industry really really well, and they give my clients the experience I want my clients to come away with. A lot of my clients, especially the older ones, people who haven't worn a lot of makeup, actually end up hiring them after to do personal makeup lessons.
Yeah, which I think is really important. What we wore when we were in our 20s and what we wear when we're in our 60s are entirely different, right? We really
Yes,
need
I'm getting these little crepey eyelids
me
down. I'm like, oh,
too. Oh
that's
my God.
different.
And hooded eyes. I never had hooded eyes before. My
Yes.
eyes were at one time my number one feature. I was told by other people. So that, oh, it's your eyes, Kath, it's your eyes. Oh my God, you've got great eyes. And now I'm looking, instead of two coats of mascara, I'm now like four coats of mascara later just to get rid of that hooded eye. It's not fun at all, this aging business. Not
Our skin
impressed.
changes.
Yeah, but that
Absolutely.
doesn't mean we can't feel beautiful. And I know myself that I certainly have felt beautiful while I was in your presence. And just knowing that it's the authentic self. Beauty isn't about cosmetics. It's not about clothes. It's an internal part of every single human being that walks this planet. And we just, when we take the time to look and invest in that, we're doing it a great service indeed. I'm going to take a quick just break for a second because I want people to grab a piece of paper and a pen so that they're able to take down your information and that they will be able to hopefully come and check you out and have their photos done by you because really it's truly one of the most wonderful experiences that you can have is to work with Barbara. She is just absolutely lovely. If you have just tuned in, you're listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I am Kathy Holmes, and I'm delighted to be your host. And I don't just host this show, I also host the Act 3 on television version of the program. And you can tune in every day, actually, 4 times a day, right across Vancouver Island to watch those episodes. I only film once a month, so they are repeats or encores, as we like to call them, but they are really terrific. And Barbara happens to be our guest on our most recent drop. It came out just a few days back, and it's such a lovely program. So do check it out. You'll find us on Cable 4. You'll also find this recording on our YouTube station right after it has been shared live with you. We share it live on YouTube. So check us out, like and subscribe. We sure hope you will do that and get more information about her in our little box down below. You can also hear us on iHeartRadio and Spotify or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So we are delighted to be part of that system. It's also an important time of year. It's the beginning of the new year as we decide who we want to be while we're growing up in 2025. It also gives an opportunity to figure out what's important to us. And I do hope that CHLY 101.7 is on your list of really important contributions that you make every year. We are a community radio station, and because we're a community radio station, we look for support from our listeners in hopes that we can bring you more programming, great programming, and keep the fabulous program like Act 3 right here for you to listen to. So I encourage you, if you have a minute, an extra couple of bucks, to go to chly.ca and make a donation to our radio station at your convenience. And we really appreciate it if you do that. We love bringing you this show every Monday at 1 o'clock. So thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to return to my guest, Miss Barbara Dobbin. She is with Barbara and Photography. Barbara, I'm so glad you're still here on the show. Thank you for staying with us and for all the
Absolutely.
things that you do in community. It's just spectacular. My next question in regard to that is the tips and the tricks, right? Like, knowing that, when back in many, many years ago, I used to do some modeling, and back then we put Vaseline in our teeth, and we did stuff that was like weird so that our mouth wouldn't stick together and all kinds of crap like that. As funny as that sounds, there are some tricks now that we can do to take better photographs. Would you mind sharing a few of those with our audience?
Definitely. There's a couple for sure. The first one is monotone. So if you're wearing a dark top, dark bottoms, light top, light bottoms. When you wear a light top and dark bottoms, you make your body shorter and it breaks it up in the middle. So just it doesn't. You can keep different colors even, but just light, light, dark, dark. That's
That's
huge.
a
Um,
huge win,
and for those
especially if you are more, I am, how do I call myself? I've earned my robustness in around my center fridge.
I call them my food babies.
My food babies, is that what you call
Yes,
them? Oh, that's so cute. I
but
call
I also
them extra
carry
set
my
of
weight
boobs.
well.
I've got 3 sets of boobs. I need only one. Sorry to our listeners if you're driving down the road and you had to pull over for a giggle, but it's true. We do, like, you're right about the color thing. It makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yes. And then something I get all my clients to do, especially as we get a little older and we get a little bit more weight under our chin and around our neck, is we just put the philosophy is what's closest to the camera is bigger and what's farther away is smaller. So we want to bring our head and our chin closer to the front of our body. And then if we push our chin forward, it tightens up our neck and our jaw. And then we just drop it a little bit so people aren't looking up our noses.
Very important, because when I'm push my hand for, you notice if you practice that, if you try it, like pushing yourself forward. I encourage, if you're not while you're driving, but if you're listening to us at the office, if you suddenly look like a turtle coming out of a shell, that you're doing it right.
Yes. And that's only from the side.
From
From
the
the front,
side.
camera can't tell the difference, which is great.
Well, but my girlfriends and I, we tend to put, because we do a lot of selfies. I'm sorry to admit that, but we do. And I know a lot of our listeners do as well. So when we hold the camera up, we're holding it up so that our chin doesn't, as you said, we're not showing all that neck and all that other stuff.
Your eyes become larger. It also
Eyes become
distorts everything.
larger. I like distortion. Distortion is a good thing. Yeah.
It can be fun. You can play with it for sure.
Do you find that people, when we first started out, we were talking about how a lot of people say, well, I can't take a picture. I just can't take a
Yes.
picture. Do you find that that once you give them a couple of those hints that suddenly their whole, like whether it's the clothing or whether it's a stylist or whether it's holding the camera differently or closer to the part that we wish to accentuate, do you find that people change in your presence when they've got a couple of those pieces? Is there a new confidence that comes?
It's always interesting because sometimes it's the quietest person who feels the least secure, and all of a sudden I'm like, where'd this Victoria's Secret model come from? They're
Right.
strutting, and it's like, and it's fun. But my most fun is when it's like, I can't wait to come and do this again.
Yes.
Like, yeah, there's something addictive about playing in front of the camera and enjoying yourself and being able to document your journey through life with photos that you actually love. They become your legacy. It's what you leave behind for people who love you. And I was thinking this when you were talking about the selfie and this. I went through a workshop in Italy, and the presenter had us do that first, and then she's like, "Okay, now take your phone and put it down by your stomach and take your selfie like that." And we were all horrified, but it's
Yeah.
like that's how your children see you, and they love you as you are. And we're like, it changes how your perspective
Oh.
on what is beauty and how are we defining that. So
That's worth repeating. That's how your children see you when especially when they're putting their arms up for hugs and for love. They are looking at us very, very differently. Yeah. Wow. Very, very powerful.
yeah,
Very powerful. Do you have kids?
I
You do. You
do.
have a daughter. You said you had a daughter. My apologies. I knew you had
I
a.
have I have three of my own, and then my partner has four. So, and then we have four step grandkids as well. So,
So you have a busy house. You have a busy, busy house.
well, thankfully they don't all live here.
Oh, there's something to be said for seven children living in the same home. Yes, I get that. My curiosity, though, do they like having their photos taken by you? How do they
Some
feel about it?
some more than others. I actually just had my oldest daughter and her best friend in the studio last week. Her best friend went to Europe, and she's now moving to Europe.
Oh,
So they came
wow.
in and did we spent 6 hours in the studio doing a variety of shoots for the two of them together, just to, you know, of course, my daughter's going to want to go visit.
Of course, there's the BFFs, right?
Yes, but it's again, it can be a really beautiful experience for your kids. I've actually had some of my older daughters, classmates from when they were younger, have said to me, they were small, when they were younger, they were a little bit chubbier because that's what happens when you're 10 and 11.
Yeah, of course.
And being in front of my camera for a number of years, spending that time really helped them with their self esteem as they grew through their teenage years. And so, yeah, having teenagers, young teenagers, kids, my step grandchildren coming through my studio, being able to give them that gift of self confidence, and because a camera is physical proof. Like you can go through the experience and think that, oh yeah, I looked great, I felt great, and then a year later, if you don't have those prints, you forget it and you might not believe it anymore. But when you see that, I have a client in Edmonton who has her portraits up beside her door. She's had them up there for 3 years. She sees them every time she walks out her door, and she walks out a step taller because
Yes.
they gives her the confidence
Yes.
of who she is when she reaches out to her day.
I entirely understand that and resonate with it. There's something to be said. It's like looking in a mirror, but in a different way, right?
Yeah.
There is the step is a little lifter when you see the confidence that you have in a photo. But I think that it's really important to consider graduation presents for our kids, right? And I'm very proud of my son. He never did have any of those kinds of pictures taken. He had, the school ones taken, which were fine, but as we've talked about earlier, they're very posed. You can almost hear him say cheese. It's like one of those kinds of photos. However, my son and his wife now, they were, just dating in those days. They went to a professional photographer, and it's honestly one of my most prized gifts is this very
Yeah.
professional picture of my son, which was, with his maybe second girlfriend. I mean, he married the person that he went to high school with. And I can see the evolution of them, and they make it a point now. to have professional photos done with their children, and they're so impressive to me
Yeah.
to be able to have those photographs because our kids grow so fast, and to see them, to see what Dakota looked like 10 years or 20 years ago versus what he looks like now, it's an entirely different thing. So I really do encourage people to as a grad present, consider seeing you. Yes,
And it's more important to me that you get one photo that you want to put up on the wall for the
exactly.
next 20 years than that you get 300 photos that you're just going to lose because technology changes so much over the years. And I specialize in wall art. All the wall art that I have comes directly from Italy. Actually, I haven't found, everyone out there, if you have a great Canadian supplier of wall art, or if you're looking for a career, I'd love to have somebody in Canada. But right now, I partner with a lab in Italy, and so we get beautiful prints that go up on the wall, and they're statement pieces. They're a memory of the connection you have either with your family, with your partner, or just with yourself. And there's nothing more valuable to me than those portraits that can then get handed down from generation to generation.
Wow, I think that I never really even, it didn't cross my mind that you would go to Italy to get the prints made
Yeah.
for the wall art. Um, I would imagine that would be quite expensive doing it that way, though. Is it affordable to do it that way, or is it not what we think it is?
It's a combination of both. So I carry the best products in the world. So
Right.
the cost of those products is more expensive, but the company that I work with, they work with me through all the custom stuff. So I don't have to add more customs and exchange rates. All the prices they give me are Canadian. So I know exactly what I'm paying for. In the last 10 years, they've only raised their prices to me once.
Yeah,
And that
that's
was
reasonable.
10% going into this year. And I'm like, it's still very manageable.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
And
yeah,
again, it's an art piece. If you were to spend that kind of money on a piece of art for your home, why not have something that is actually personal? And I know I've had quite a few decorators on Act Three, and they've all said, you need to personalize your home. It needs to be about you and the things that you love. The thing, you shouldn't have things in your home if you truly don't love them, right? It's a
yeah.
waste of space to do that. So to have a good portrait, I think, is really critical. So we told people to go get a piece of paper and a pen a little while ago. How about we tell people how to reach you? What do they need to do to book an appointment with you?
So the best way to reach me, because I spend a lot of time, especially this time of year, in the studio with other clients, would be through my website, which is barbaraann with an e.ca. People can also call me and leave me a message. It's hit and miss whether if I'm with another client, I can't answer the
Of
phone.
course,
So,
of course.
and that's 250-619-5424. So I
So
will get back to people as quickly as I can just to find out what it is they need and see what I can do for them.
what do you see happening for yourself in the new year as we're still in January when this is being recorded. So, do you have some new additions to your roster that you would love to be able to do, or new goals that you would love to,
Wow.
tell us
Well, there's
more?
a few things. Yeah.
Cool.
So I do have a new boudoir type set that I'm introducing. But I'm going to introduce that to my VIP Elite Circle first. So they've been invited to a private party on March 1st. That's just there to celebrate them and everything that they've done in supporting my business over the last year. So they're going to get to see the new thing that I'm introducing first. I am going to a portrait conference in Vegas middle of March. And I am doing a 2-day boudoir summit down there with 5 incredible boudoir photographers. So when I come back, I'm sure there'll be some other new sets and things that I'll be creating to bring into my studio as well. And then I like to go and support other artists. So I take inspiration from a variety of different places. So Shane Quazen's coming to town. He's a spoken poet artist at the Port Theater, where we've lined up all my family to go see him. And then this year I'm going to Shenyun in Vancouver as well. I've been,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been, so I take inspiration from so many other places and the authenticity of what they do. And I'm really excited to see what I find from them as well to bring in.
Well,
So
I think that it's really important that, when you are working in a field, any field, it doesn't matter what kind of work that you're doing, that you do take the time to upgrade and to meet
yeah,
people and to work with people that you may not have otherwise had a connection with. And then to sort of see, I'm constantly fascinated by everyday people who are doing everyday things with a twist. Right.
yeah,
And you're certainly a great example of that. But I also, if I'm a brand new person, I mean, the good news is I've had the privilege of knowing you now for the last couple of years, and that, greatest gift ever. But I'm curious if someone, if this is a person you don't know who reaches out to you and they call you on your website or on your cell phone or whatever, what can they expect from you?
first, we have a short telephone conversation just to make sure that what they're looking for aligns with what I'm doing. I don't cover birthday parties. I don't do weddings. I've done weddings in the past. I just don't get the same personal impact on my clients that I do with personal portraiture. So, and I don't do newborns. So it helps us to figure out does what you want and need match up with what I can provide you?
Right.
And then also the budget, because I'm not an inexpensive photographer. Like, this is an investment. So it helps us figure that out first in a phone conversation.
Yeah.
Once we decide we're going to move forward, then I always have a full consultation with my clients. If it's business, then I do a personal branding enhancement consultation. So we talk about color theory, we talk about demographics, we talk about where you use your photos, and then we narrow that down so that when they come in, we spend those few hours in the studio, we're creating what they need. And then I do a design and wardrobe consultation for all my other sessions, so that if you want to be in light, airy background, let's see what clothing is going to go best with that. Are we coordinating couples and kids and pets and dogs and cats? So what is that going to look like? And then figuring out what aesthetics do people like. And then, I mean, I bring my personal twist into every photo,
Yeah.
but it's got to be, it's not about me. It's about
Of
you.
course.
It's about what you want. And how, and if I get to know you and I get to know your family, then I also know that I can create that connection that you're going to want to see on your wall and treasure forever.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that it's creating trust. It's creating that relationship. But you also offer a couple of other things. Like I noticed, for example, even this year when, knowing what we know, you do send along a little tips guide and things like that too, right?
Yes. I also have my studio glamour wardrobe. So,
Yes, I do
yeah.
want to tell you that I do, as you know, for those who know me really well, they know I'm a little bit, I used to call myself a crow, and my friend said, "You're not a crow, Kathy, you are a raven." And I said, "Oh, I like it. I like it because I like shiny objects. I like pretty clothes. I love sequins. I love like all of that. I'm a very girl's girl, very, very pretty." And when I walked into the studio and saw your latest acquisition, I was like, oh,
Yes, my red tulle robe.
the
And I also
red
have these full
robe.
length pink angel wing feathers that just, when the fan's in them, they just sway in the wind, and then you can
Oh
dance in
my
them. And oh
gosh.
yeah, I have probably about 200 dresses, and not all just dresses. I also have scarves. Some people like
And
boudoir can
jewelry.
just
You
be
also
in a
have
scarf.
necklaces, and I think I
Necklaces.
last year I wore one of your necklaces, and I was very close to taking it home with me. You had to do a pat down to make sure I wasn't leaving with the props.
I do. I also have that. Ooh, sparkly.
Ooh,
So I'm like,
sparkly.
oh, that one doesn't fit me, but it'll look good in the studio.
And I think that that's something that people need to aware. The other thing I remember from our last year, we didn't do it this year because I was very, denim jacket and black, as I always wear pretty much every day. And so, but we had last year we played with some fabric that you had some blue,
Yes.
beautiful blue tulle. And, you feel different when you're wearing these other items. And I think that that's something that people, they don't necessarily realize how much of a difference they can feel if they try something brand new.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
about it, like get into your studio is what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
We're coming to the end of the program, and I always ask my guests my favorite thing. So just before we do that, I'm just going to ask you to share one more time, how do people reach you? And then we'll go into the words of wisdom.
Okay. So my best place to get me is my website. So Barbara Ann with an E.ca. And then my phone number 250-619-5424.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that that's in the chat box down below for our YouTube watchers. You know, Barbara Ann Photography, Barbara, it's such a pleasure to have you. I always love sharing the piece of wisdom with our listeners. So if you could imbibe on our community, or to women in general, or to the audience wherever they come from, women or men, what would be your words of wisdom as it relates to the love that and passion that you have?
Well, it's a combination of things. One, you are worth it. I think that's really important that women know that they're worth it, and that you just have to trust the person that you're being photographed by. And whether that's me or somebody else, open yourself up to be vulnerable so that you can see yourself. If the trust isn't there, then it's not the right fit. But yeah,
Yeah.
trust yourself, trust the process, and have fun. Oh my gosh, if you're not having fun, you're missing out on everything it can be. And
And when
everybody
you're
that
having
comes,
fun, you just glow, right? Like how can any of that be missed when you're glowing like
well,
that?
and we laugh so much in my studio,
Yes.
whether it's getting up off the floor and it's like, it's been a long day and it's like takes me an extra step to get up, or then I have to help somebody else up, and we're just giggling. And I had somebody in on Friday, and she just grabbed her stomach and she was just laughing so hard. It was just, yeah, you gotta have fun. Like,
Oh my gosh, yes. I think that's the biggest wisdom of all is to have fun because your authentic self shows in laughter. It always does.
yeah. Well,
Always.
and the other thing I do with the end of all of my photo shoots with the Women of Influence is we do a few-second video dance party. And it's one take, you get 3 to 5 seconds. We just turn the camera on us. Most of the time, I even forget to clean the lens off my phone, and we just do 3 to 5 seconds of dancing. And I'm like, that's it. Because we can't take ourselves so seriously. We have to, and we end up laughing. It's just so much, it's so goofy and fun. And yeah, it's,
I love that part. I can honestly tell you I do love that part. And unfortunately I get the song in my head, a song in my head. It might not even be the one that you put it to, but I get that song in my head and then it's a worm that just goes and goes.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
laugh. You got to have a good time. Well, thank you for giving us such a good time on the show today. I really appreciate having you, Barbara. And
Thank
to
you for
all of our
having me.
listeners, I hope that you will take the time to check out Barbara Ann Photography. Barbara Ann with an E.ca is her website. Make sure you check her out because she's just absolutely delicious in every way. To all
Thank
of our
you.
listeners, thank you. To all of our listeners, thanks again for tuning in to Act 3. We'll see you next time. Have yourself an absolutely fabulous day. Enjoy. Bye for now.